Hi everyone, my name is Andrew Glass, and I'm a Government Information Analyst with the State and Local Records Management Division at the Texas State Library. One thing that I've noticed in my time reviewing schedules is that similar questions arise again and again, whether it's a new RMO whose predecessor didn't leave much guidance, or someone who gets handed the RMO designation by their agency head as quote-unquote other duties assigned. You can read TSLAC's bulletins on the topics. You can dig through our blog for information about recertification, but essentially there is no one-stop shop for all your recertification needs. Until now. You're here because you work for a state agency or a public university in the state of Texas, and you have questions about this process. If you're a local government or a private individual, the information in this video may be interesting and well presented, but it won't be relevant to you. The game plan is as follows. This video is going to provide a short, brief overview of state records laws, especially those concerning retention schedules. Then I'm going to go over the certification-recertification process so that you know what to expect when you're due for a recertification. And finally, we'll go over retention schedule rules and the requirements for submitting an agency retention schedule to the Texas State Library and Archives Commission. Hut. Let's get the legal rationale out of the way first. State agencies and public universities in Texas must recertify their retention schedules because it is the law. The Texas Administrative Code, Title 13, Chapter 6, lays out the rules for records retention schedule scheduling. These rules are summarized in our Bulletin 3. Newly created state agencies and universities must submit to TSLAC a records retention schedule within 1 year of the date of their establishment. Once that schedule has been certified by TSLAC, the newly formed entity is given 1 year to recertify, and 1 more year after that to recertify again. Now that TSLAC has seen and approved 3 records retention schedules from the entity, the leash is loosened a little bit, and the entity is given 5 years to recertify. It should be noted that most, but not all, state agencies and universities have reached that 5-year cycle. 3 more considerations. If you're a long-standing state agency that absorbs another state agency, through the sunset process, for instance, you must recertify within a year of the new formation. Once that retention schedule has been certified by TSLAC, you go back to the 5-year cycle. These are just deadlines. If you don't want to wait, you can recertify at any point in the 1 or 5-year period. Once you recertify, it starts the clock again for your next recertification. And finally, if your agency takes on new functions that result in the creation of record types that aren't reflected on your current retention schedule, but are not dramatic enough to warrant an overhaul, talk to your analyst about adding them through the amendment process. Hope that timeline doesn't have your head spinning. In the last slide, I made it plain that not only must all state agencies and public universities in Texas have a certified retention schedule on file with TSLAC, but I also mentioned that it might be of interest to recertify before your due date. So what's so great about retention schedules? The retention schedule is the beating heart of any records management program. It's best practice to conduct a records inventory for your agency to figure out what records you're actually producing. More information about conducting an inventory can be found in other TSLAC training materials. In conjunction with an inventory, the retention schedule allows for consistent implementation of record-keeping policies. Whether it's the method of disposition, storage medium, or what have you, the retention schedule allows you to note policies and practices that assure standardization. In the course of a records inventory, you gain the ability to determine which records produced or received by your government are vital to your core mission. Noting which records are considered vital on your records retention schedule will assist your agency in any contingency of operations planning. The records retention schedule is a comprehensive listing of every single record type that your agency produces. It is published on TSLAC's website in PDF form and available for inspection by anyone with an internet connection. If someone is interested in how records are managed at your agency, the retention schedule is a good place to start. But most importantly, the recertification process gives you the opportunity to review and evaluate your operations. RMOs check in with divisions, Records liaisons check in with records custodians. For state agencies and public universities, it is a great opportunity to start with a clean slate. Maybe nothing fundamentally changed. No big deal, you don't have to change anything. Maybe you started a new function since your recertification, and the records produced from that are not reflected on your schedule. Now's the time to include them. Recertification is a fistful of our words. Renew, rejuvenate, reborn. So far, we've spent a fair amount of time discussing the whys of records retention schedule recertification. This short video is now going to transition into TSLAC's role in the process, what we do, how we can assist, and what to expect. But first, a timeline. 6 months out, your agency or university's records management officer and head will receive a formal letter from your assigned analyst with information about the aforementioned rules and the deadline for your agency to recertify. Along with the physical letter, an email will be sent to your RMO with the last approved recertified retention schedule and a checklist. If we aren't in contact with you at any point after the notification, we will send you a gentle reminder that your schedule is due. This is sent the month prior to your recertification month. Finally, the good stuff. We receive your schedule, it's on time. The clock stops. From here on in, the process is a back and forth between the agency and the analyst. We give it a once-over, make sure the correct form is used, cover page signed, etc. Then it gets placed in a queue for review. Analysts at TSLAC will review schedules in order of receipt. If you're ever curious about where your schedule is once received by TSLAC, give your analyst a call or shoot them an email. We each have a pretty sophisticated tracking system in place. Personally, I use a whiteboard, so we will be able to tell you the status. If the analyst notices any issues with the schedule, a memo will be crafted. More on this review process coming up. Once corrections have been made and the schedule resubmitted, the schedule is passed on to the Archives Division of TSLAC for their review. If corrections are required, yet another memo is created. Again, your point of contact is still your government information analyst. The Archives memo will come from them. Finally, the schedule is good, it's on point. It's gone through 2 rounds of review at TSLAC. Everyone is happy with it. We send it to our executive director for their signature. The date of that signature is the date of final approval. So let's break down each of these points in the timeline further. That initial notification includes more than just a deadline. We do some prep work on your behalf in order for you to have a good experience recertifying. Along with the deadline is an assortment of helpful documents. Chief among these is the SLR 105 with your last approved recertification and any amendments. Our expectation is that you will use this version of the form to edit and resubmit. However, that's up to you. This is your opportunity to clean the slate and start anew. The Recert packet also includes a checklist on PDF with instructions, a guide to text links, common series to consider, and a cover page. More about each of these in the coming slides. But first, we live on planet text links now when it comes to state agency and university retention schedules. The fields in the 105 make feeding your schedule into text links simple. This is one of the reasons you may be dinged on a review memo for straying from the SLR 105. For instance, your AC definitions might be in the remarks column. This is going to produce errors on the uploading end. Typos and strange characters will also be noted in a memo. Not because we are trying to proofread your schedule like a junior high rhetoric paper, but because the schedules uploaded into text links have become an immensely powerful research tool. Updating the university records retention schedule, the state records retention schedule, determining which series are quote-unquote common to a majority of state agencies. Having a good, clean, queryable series make this possible. If you ever have a question about a particular series you're thinking about using, we can look into what other state agencies have done using text links. Just ask. The first piece of the Recert packet to consider is a guide to character limits in text links. In the pre-text links era, there was no description field, so descriptions were added to the record series title field. Now we have some dedicated fields for this purpose that I'd like to highlight. The description and the remarks field are huge. Include as much information as your heart desires in these fields. The description field is where you can really flesh out how you define certain record series and what kinds of records fit each series. You can even list specific comments that do not directly describe the record series, such as which department maintains the official record copy, what format the record is stored in, or cross-references to similar record series. The remaining fields are more strict with their character limits. For example, agencies often overload the legal citation field. If you have any remarks beyond the actual legal citation, move it to the remarks column. The big kahuna in your recertification packet is the PDF instructions with a checklist of action items. This will list pro tips and all of the requirements for preparing your initial submission. Here are some of the most important requirements and mistakes to consider. The checklist includes detailed instructions for completing the SLR 105 form. To cover just a few, in case you already forgot those character limits in the last slide, you can reference them again in your packet. You will see some formatting tips, such as avoiding the use of extra spaces and gratuitous section headers. There should only be a record series and a single retention period listed on each line of the SLR 105 Excel form. In addition to only having a single record series on each line, make sure you don't have any duplicate AINs. These are agency item numbers, which function as unique identifiers for each record series. No duplicate AINs, no problem. There will also be a reminder to check with the State Records Retention Schedule, commonly abbreviated to RRS or RS, to ensure that your series are following the minimum retention periods mandated by TSLAC. Your schedule should also include all caution notes, remarks, and legal citations as they appear on the Rs for common series. Additionally, try to include a description for every record series. The Rs includes boilerplate descriptions that can be copied into your agency schedule. Please also note that the University Records Retention Schedule, commonly referred to as the ERS, is available to reference common record series for state universities. Item number 3 in your recertification packet is a list of common record series for state agencies and universities. Here are some considerations. If your agency engages in any public relations, which includes social media, or undergoes sunset review, if you pay your employees, if you write any correspondence, if your agency owns any property or vehicles, or creates contracts, then chances are good you will want to include a majority of the record series on this list. Your analyst will be checking for these common series, so recertify like a pro and include these records on your schedule if you have them. Even if you don't produce these record types, your analyst will follow up with you to verify that you don't perform the functions that would produce the record types. It's useful information to TSLAC to know, for instance, that your agency doesn't own its own building. The final item in the recertification packet is the Form SLR 105C. This is essentially the cover sheet for your recertification submission. Fill out the agency information, then click the appropriate box for Initial Certification, Recertification, or Amendment. The purpose of this video is recerts, so let's click that. The form should then be signed and dated by either the agency head or the records management officer. This form can be scanned and submitted via email to your analyst, along with your retention schedule on the SLR 105 Excel form. When the final version of your schedule has been approved, this form will then be signed by the state librarian and attached to the final schedule file. So you've received your recertification packet, and you sit down to take a look at the action item checklist. You start to plan out how much work needs to be done, and you realize that maybe it's more than you previously imagined. Maybe you're in the middle of a large project, the legislative session has you doing backflips, or you are in the process of hiring a new records team. Either way, you might be wondering how you can possibly complete it all before your next recertification is due. Fret not. You can always send a written request for an extension to your analyst. This can be done in an email or through paper correspondence. State agencies are afforded an extra 3 months past the original deadline to submit their updated schedules. You can always discuss unique circumstances and timeline requirements with your analyst. We are here to make sure you have the time and the tools you need to recertify your agency's schedule. Your analyst will also make sure to send you written reminders about your new extended due date. What happens when we receive your 105 and 105C? First, your assigned analyst in our RMA unit will initiate the review process. After RMA approval, TSLAC's Archives Department will then review and approve the schedule. Finally, the state librarian will sign off on the final approved schedule, and the schedule will be uploaded to our website for public download. Please note that universities with their own archival programs do not have their schedule reviewed by TSLAC's archivist. University archivists should review the schedule prior to submission to TSLAC. In the first step, we will check formatting, ensure that all record series meet the retention minimums on the Rs and Ers, and check that unique series have appropriate retention periods. Analysts will usually prepare a review memo with a list of required and suggested changes to be made. There may end up being several review memos issued before the schedule is approved by the RMA unit. Then it's on to archives. Our archivist will check the schedule for the appropriate archival codes, A or I for series that must be sent to archives, and R or O for series that must be reviewed by an archivist. Whether you use A or I, or R or O, will depend on whether you are a state agency or a state university. Our archivist will also check to see if there are any previous appraisals on file. If your agency has had a record series that was previously appraised and was found not to have archival value, this series will be marked with a code E for exempt. You may only use code E if it has been assigned by Archives on a previous schedule. Archives will inform the analyst if they are missing any of the agency's archival series in TSLAC's collection. Common missing records are meeting minutes, administrative correspondence, annual reports, etc. Reminder again, this step is not necessary for state universities. Now on to director and librarian approval. After RMA approval, university schedules go straight to the state librarian for their approval signature. The final PDF version of your schedule will be uploaded to the TSLAC's website for public download. All record series are also then uploaded to text links, and any obsolete series that were not carried over from the last recertification are provided in a report to the agency. Once the schedule is approved, your agency will receive an official approval letter. This will be uploaded along with the PDF copy of your approved schedule to TSLAC's website. New series will be uploaded to text links, and your analyst will generate a report of obsolete series. RMOs must review the list of obsolete series. For these will be deactivated in text links. Any boxes stored under obsolete series should be moved to a new record series so that they are retained for the proper amount of time. After official approval is received, you may begin using your recertified retention schedule immediately. Regular disposition can be conducted according to the minimum retention periods outlined in your approved schedule. The decertification of state agency retention schedules is authorized by Texas Administrative Code. When an agency fails to submit its new schedule or request an extension by the deadline. If an agency refused to recertify its schedule, the state librarian has the option to decertify it immediately, effective on the original due date of the recertified schedule. The consequences of schedule decertification are many. First, the state agency dramatically increases legal risk by not complying with state law. It may open itself up to litigation from the public or from the Attorney General. Secondly, a decertified state agency is no longer authorized to destroy records based on its last certified schedule, and it must submit requests to TSLAC for the destruction of any records. Records of short-term value will begin to pile up and quickly become unmanageable. Lastly, the recertification timeline gets narrower. Any state agency who allows its retention schedule to become decertified must recertify every year for the next 3 years, rather than following the typical 5-year recertification period. Just don't do it. So what have we learned? First, we discussed the timeline for recertification, which is every year for the first 2 years and every 5 years thereafter. Next, we discussed the benefits of updating your retention schedule. These include consistency, the identification of vital records, stakeholder communication, and starting over with a clean slate. After that, we moved on to the actual recertification process, which begins with every agency using Form SLR 105. This allows TSLAC to maintain a consistent database of agency record series, with a standard schedule format for all schedules. Next, we talked about all of the items you will receive in your recertification packet: the SLR 105, the character limit guide, the action items checklist, the common record series list, and the SLR 105C cover sheet. We discussed each step in the approval process, starting with the RMA unit, moving on to archives, and reaching the final destination of librarian approval. Finally, we discussed the dangers of decertification, which prohibits agencies from destroying records. Thank you for watching TSLAC State Agency Recertification video. If you have any questions about recertification, please contact your assigned analyst. Every state agency and public university in Texas has an assigned analyst. Give them a call. Also, if you enjoyed this training, please visit our training portal for more opportunities. Thank you.